Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech, protected.
The following is independently produced programming. The views and opinions expressed are those of the producers and do not reflect the views and opinions of Falls Area Community Television, our staff, or board of directors.
Secrets in the shadows, lost and found. Truth in every echo, loud and clear. Keep on with the long road, no more fear. In the halls of power, whispers grow. Every secret cracked beneath the undertone. Honor stories hidden in the glass. On this long road, in the truth we trust.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Roberts. Welcome to The Long Road. Today we're going to talk about a topic that politicians and at all levels, city level, state level, federal level, know it's happening, but no one wants to address it because the problem is so serious. If you address it, you got to come up with answers. And politicians do not want to come up with answers on this situation because they want to be able to put the money in places they think that will get them more bang for the buck. And what we have is the lost dreams of American seniors. We've talked about the American dream, but most of the American dream was made up of basically plain old advertisement. People says, buy this house, this is American dream. Buy this car, this is American dream. And so what would happen is, basically, for a while, if you were in your 40s, unless you were extremely wealthy, you couldn't get a mortgage. Okay? Plain and simple. There was a lot of things that you couldn't do when you got to a certain age. But then, wait a minute. We got to convince people to spend, to buy things they don't need, to buy things they don't want, and to buy things they don't afford or can't afford. Who cares if you go into debt? People have said, hey, you know what? When you go into debt, who cares is how big your credit card's are? It's going to die with you, so what's the problem? Well, it's caused a lot of problems. And one of the big things that's happening right now is senior citizens, more and more, are in homeless shelters, and the rate is increasing all the time. Look at it this way. If you were born in 1960, that means you're 65 years old. You may be able to work, you may want to work, but the company says, no, we don't want to have you working at our company. Because if you work at our company, our health insurance costs are going to go up. Plus, you cost too much per hour. Third, you're not willing to put those 60 or 70 hours a week in hope of getting a promotion and a pay raise. You're starting to think about yourself. You're starting to think about your grandkids. We don't want people like you working for us. And so, there's why you got a lot of people who are not working. That's why you have a lot of people, especially males, who were in their 50s and stuff in their company not to get in trouble with old age discrimination will say, hey, we'll just eliminate the whole department and maybe we'll have a rehire and decide who we're going to take back. Well, the elderly, the older person, especially older males, lose out. And so, or the company will say, hey, Bill, I really don't want to let you go. But the law requires me to let you go. See, I can't let Joe Jackson go, even though he hasn't been working here as long as you have, because he's a person of color and I don't want to get sued. We'll get in trouble by the federal government. So I'm really, really sorry. And as he pats you on the back and the security guards let you go out the door with your small box of belongings, he goes and says to HR, yep, that's another sucker we got rid of because, yeah, we were paying him $30 an hour, but we were only paying Joe Jackson $22 an hour. And so we don't have to look someone in the eye and say, hey, we don't want you because you cost too much. That will get us in legal trouble. So now we are. That's why a lot of guys will end up retiring at 62 because they can't get another job. No one wants to hire them. And basically, AI will look at their resume. Nope, the resume will never make past the first glance. That's one of the big reasons that companies like to use Indeed and all these different quote-unquote hiring companies, because the companies, resume companies, they decide who is the best fit. And then me as a company guy, HR, I only have to deal with some of the people that were recommended to me. I have no idea how many women were recommended, how many people of color were recommended, how many people, gender, all that other kind of stuff. I don't have to look at that. All I have to do is look at the bottom line. So if you retire at 62, you only get 70% of your Social Security. Bingo. Okay. Let's talk about Social Security. For many Americans, Social Security is a critical component of their retire income. But for some people, Social Security is their only income. The program was never intended to be able to finance a person's retirement. When I grew up, when we were taking our classes, when they taught economics in school, when they taught finance in school, I still remember in 5th grade when the first time I saw it was the three-legged stool. The three-legged stool, pension. Hey, but what happens to pensions? Well, Congress changed the law so a company can go bankrupt, and part of the bankrupt, it can wipe out all of its pension responsibilities and turn those pension responsibilities over to the government. And so while you may have been expecting, say, $50,000 a year from your pension, Once it's turned over to the government agency and they look at that, they will take a big chunk out of your expectation, and now that 50,000 you're expecting may drop down to 30, 35,000. But the companies who never funded the pension plan, never matched your pension that they were supposed to, or some companies that used the pension plan for stock buybacks or other things that didn't work out, they're let off, because we rarely ever hold a corporation or a CEO or chief financial officer, board of directors responsible. So very few people have a pension. And a lot of people who do have a pension have a fixed pension. If you retired 20 years ago, say you retired at 2000, in the year 2000, at a $2,000 a month pension. Well, 25 years, you've been living for 25 years, collecting that pension for 25 years, and you only get still $2,000. So your purchasing power has been cut more than half in value. And in some cases, for some people, their pension is basically kind of worthless when it comes to purchasing power. Shoot. Hey, for example, military pensions. When I got my military pension, it was based on the highest single day I was in the service pay. Then it went to your high three. Then it's been going back and forth, back and forth. Then the military goes and says, hey, we got a deal for you. We're going to have everybody contribute to basically a 401k, and we'll do some matching. Well, so really in effect, unless the economy grows really spastic in the future, you do not have a pension. You basically have a 401 plan. And when a company creates a 401, that is not for your benefit. That is for their benefit. Mine, every year, I get to find out in October how much my pension is going up. My pension goes up whatever Social Security goes up. So I got my pension a couple years ago. Oh, we're going to go up 8.7%. Then another one, we're going to go up 5.8%. So in a 3-year period, just adding the numbers up, I think it was like 22%. But when you do the compounding, it's like, oh, Colonel Roberts, your pension is going up 25% over what it was 3 years ago. But very few people in the country have inflation riders on their pension. Then the other part was savings. Well, when I was growing up as a kid, we'd put money on, I think it was every Tuesday. We all had a bank book. We'd bring money in there, and they would write how much we had in our bank book. 5% interest. So it was 5% interest, and credit cards, if you were really bad, you got up to 12%, but in most places it was 12%. So what did the federal government do? Okay. The Fed brought down interest rates down to zero, maybe in a couple cases equivalent of less than zero. Okay? That made it great for corporations to buy things, to give themselves big pay raises, to suck up other small companies, all kinds of stuff. But when the prime rate went down to zero, or the Fed rate went down to zero, say for example, that $100 that you had in the bank at 5%, compounding daily means you would have increased your by $6 for every $100 you had. But it went to 0.01% interest rate. You're lucky if you get 2 or 3 pennies after the year. So you didn't put much money. Your money was basically getting less in value every single year because there was inflation and you were not getting basically, you weren't even getting 0.25% on your savings. So why save? Because then advertising says, you know what? It doesn't do you any good to save because, hey, say we go to 2021, you know what? You got $1,000 in the bank on January 1st. On December 31st, you lost 9% of that $1,000. So you was worth $1,000 January 1st. It's worth $910 on December 31st. So you go out and buy. Everybody says, yeah, you gotta buy. It's everything's so low. The other part, Congress said, hey, you know what? We're going to change this. So Utah, South Dakota, and Delaware, they became the headquarters of a lot of big banks' credit card division. And then those places could set their own, and they kept setting it higher and higher and higher because it meant jobs for them. And so, without naming one, there's a credit card company, okay, a local retailer that basically the credit card is done by Capital One. The credit card is a little bit more than 30% interest. 30% interest. Boy, when I was a kid, the mafia and loan sharks didn't charge that much interest. So look at it. If you had $1,000, basically you bought and paid and bought, but you had $1,000 balance. So over the course of the year, you spent $300 in interest alone. Then the government says, well, we're not going to let you deduct the average person to deduct interest. So where'd your money go? And so the savings leg was kicked out too. So your pension leg is gone, your saving leg is gone, and guess what? All you have is Social Security. And if you planned on having the golden retirement, you needed all three legs. The government found a way to assist big corporations to get rid of 2 legs. Then we go back to Bill Clinton and stuff, and he goes, you know what? We don't like the CPI that Social Security is using, because that CPI Social Security is using is too realistic. So we'll use this other CPI. You know, the ones that don't have medical conditions, don't have prescription drugs, all this other kind of stuff. So when they go and say inflation went up 2.8% over the course of the year for this group, that is no reflection of the seniors. So, like, for example, if I have $1,000 a month and I round it off to 3, that means I'll get $30 a month extra. But Medicaid went up $20. So now I'm down to $10, which is 1%. And cost of food went up. Wait a minute, I'm in a negative right now because the Social Security and the federal government do not use the really correct CPI that relates to seniors and their cost. Okay. The program was never intended to be the sole source of income for retirees, yet many find themselves in precarious situations. With the average monthly benefit of less than $2,000, it often falls short of covering basic living expenses. Okay? Now you're a widow. Say you get $2,000 a month. You own your own home, it's paid for and everything. Okay, we kind of have a brutal winter and your heating bill, it could be $2,500. Electricity's going up and you could easily pay another $1,000 for electricity. So that's $35,000. Your house is worth $200,000. And hopefully when we reevaluate this year, it won't go higher. $200,000, that's a $6,000 in taxes. You know, insurance could be another $1,200 over the course of the year. And so now you got $4,000, $10,000, $11,002. So that's heating, that's electricity, that is your taxes. Oh yeah, you're going to pay $200 a month for Medicare Part B. Now you up to $13,000. But that's not counting clothes, that's not counting food, telephone, cable, internet, a car insurance. Because all of a sudden, if the average monthly benefit is less than $2,000, you could easily, just doing those, find yourself with less than $10,000 a month. You could easily find yourself, $10,000 a year. $10,000 a year isn't going to take you very well. Especially if, what is your co-pays for your prescription drugs? Okay, Medicare doesn't pay for that. So you're going to have to get another plan. Oh, wait a minute. Medicare Part B usually pays 80%. Where are you going to come up with the extra? Oh, maybe I'm going to get a Medicare supplement plan. I'd say maybe $350 a month. We're going to round it up. Oh, crap. That's another $4,000. And when I'm looking at it, then I counted wrong. That brings you up to $20,000. Okay? Then you're still going to have to pay co-pays and some of the stuff. That's not counting dental, not counting eyeglasses, all that kind of stuff. So now you have $4,000 a year. Pay for your car, pay for your car insurance, pay for your internet, pay for your food, pay for your phone. Oh, crap. I forgot all about your rent. Your mortgage, okay, it's good if you don't have a mortgage. But if you do have a mortgage, which a lot of people do, you're in a situation, oh, maybe I'll take a reverse mortgage and really get screwed over because I get some money, but I'm responsible for the taxes and all repairs and all upkeep. So now you're in trouble. Those are not your golden years. And plus, you better plan all your bills and expenses because anything unexpected could really go. And here's the really big five. On average, Social Security benefits replace only 40% of your pre-retirement income, often not enough to cover basic living expense, health care, leisure activities, or unexpected emergencies. No, if all you're doing is living on Social Security, you are not going to have leisure activities. Yep, healthcare expenses. Medicare does not cover all medical costs, and living on Social Security may struggle to find necessary health care. You know why? Just because you're on Medicare and I'm a doctor, I don't have to take you as a patient. No, I can say, go to some other doctor. I've got my place up here because I've been to doctors that refuse to take Medicare patients. Okay, when I first moved here, when I said I tried to get a doctor, kind of a primary care, I'm told, I go on the website, not taking new patients, not taking new patients, not taking new patients. I go, holy crap. And people kept telling me that. So I called up. I talked to someone that didn't work at the hospital. They were kind of a screener. And they asked me what kind of insurance I had. And I told them. And it was amazing. I had a couple of choices of primary care that just happened to open up while I was on the phone and saying, hey, I got top-notch health care. Lack of flexibility. Even if you own your own home, but you're on Social Security, even if you go work with the city to help delay some of your taxes until your house is sold, you got home repairs, you got vehicle repairs, and if you don't have a lot of savings, you don't have a 401, and even if you have a 401, most people who have 401 have less than 150,000, which doesn't last very long. And when I was talking about the credit cards and the debt and buying cars late and doing this, a lot of people are retiring with a lot of debt. If you have a lot of debt, what the heck are you going to do when you retire and you don't have enough money to pay off that debt? Well, you can become in the growing number of seniors who have to file for bankruptcy. In some cases, retirees may need to rely on credit cards to cover basic expenses, leading to a cycle of debt that is harder to escape. More and more elderly people and even regular age, middle-aged people are using the credit card to buy food at the grocery store, using the credit card to go in and buy food at McDonald's, Wendy's. These businesses love it when you use the credit card, because when they use the credit card, they know there's a very good chance people are going to buy more than they need or they can afford. They don't care. Capital One, Venture Card, MasterCard, Chase, no matter which company they come from, okay, Delta, American Express, American Airlines, or they all get benefits by using their card. And they go, if you go in and go to the supermarket and use that credit card, you get 3 points for every 3 miles for every dollar you spend. Well, if you have a limited amount of money, it doesn't matter if you got 100,000 miles. 100,000 miles may get to your place and back, but how do you afford hotels and things like that? So, I got 100,000 miles. I get a round trip ticket to Tokyo. But what are you going to do in Tokyo? Sleep in the airport? Eat crackers? And the last one, inflation and erosion. While Social Security benefits include cost of living adjustments or COLAs, these adjustments often lag behind actual inflation rate. Retirees relying solely on Social Security may find it challenging to keep up with rising costs, especially in areas healthcare and housing, which often outpaces general inflation. And, okay, what about the years when the federal government said, nope, there will not be any COLA for people receiving Social Security? And so, can you remember a year where nothing went up? Doesn't work that way. Here's 9 facts about the impending senior homelessness crisis. Okay, when you go in and you see on TV or you see on social media or you see on the news outlets online, and you look at the homeless and stuff, there are a lot more, you can see more and more elderly, but you got to be careful. But because life has been so hard on a bunch of the people, you can be in your 40s and look like you're in your 60s, but still there's more and more homelessness. Whether it's San Francisco, Los Angeles, Denver, the big cities, Seattle. The number of adults aged 65 and over experiencing housing instability and homelessness has rapidly increased in recent years and is expected to accelerate. And you're like, what? Like I said, if you're born in 1960, you're 65 years old. And what I found out, and I thought, wow, this is kind of crappy. When you turn 70, you're considered elderly. I don't buy off on that, but you're considered elderly. And very few people 70 above will ever get the opportunity again to earn extra income. If you're working and you continue to work, yes. In other places, like Target and Walmart and stuff, they need people for cashiers. You can get a part-time job to bring in money. Okay. Older adults are the fastest growing age group experiencing homelessness. Over 150,000 people older than 55 were homeless in 2022. Between 2019 and 2022, the amount of homelessness for people 55 and older increased by 37%. Oops. You can easily lose your job in that 55 area, especially if you're a white, college-educated male, because you get too expensive for a company and they want to hire a younger person that has no problem working around the clock for a lot less money in hope of getting that fictitious brass ring that the Wizard of Oz has for you. By 2030, the basically in less than 5 years, they're expecting 500,000 people 55 and older to be homeless. Put in perspective, that's like taking the people in Chester County, 7 Chester counties, and make every single one of the person homeless, and that's what it's going to be like. Or when you go in and say 55 and older, that basically means almost every single person in New Hampshire, 55 and older, would be homeless if you put them all in one state. By 2038, 13 years from now, an additional 4 million people 55 and older will have no access at all to affordable housing. In 2021, nearly 11.2 million adults 55 and older were right there on the borderline, paying a heck of a lot more of their income than they would normally should be doing to stay there. And, oh, you get hurt at work. You have a stroke. I had a major stroke at 60. I was able to recover some and go to work. But a lot of people did not have the health care or could afford the 6 months that it took me to between acute rehab and nursing homes. So, those things happen. A lot of people, when they're in their 50s, late 50s, the major medical event happens, and the best they can hope for is Social Security disability. More and more corporations are buying up housing. Hey, because they're planning on making an investment with turnover. More than a third of the tenants in low-income housing tax credit units are at least 62 years old, and more than half of the housing choice vouchers received households are headed by older adults. But the supply is not increasing. And then another thing, what happens if a spouse dies? Yes, we're getting $3,500 a month between us for Social Security. Oops, one dies. Things change drastically. I've had clients, I'm going, okay, I've helped her. The husband's getting he's 100%. He's getting $4,400 a month. He could be collecting Social Security. And so all of a sudden, he dies. Social Security stops that month, and they take the check back. The VA will say, yeah, we'll take the deposit back, but we'll give you a check. So it's called the death a month check. So if the woman comes in or the spouse comes in and applies for widows death benefit, depending on how long you've been married, how long the veteran has been 100%, she'll get between $1,600 and $2,000 a month. Okay. So that $4,400 disappears. Okay. Her Social Security check disappears based on the assumption that his is higher. Bingo. So in theory, all of a sudden, that widow has over $5,000 less a month, pretty close to $6,000 less per month, $72,000 less than when they were living together. He died, life changes just like that. And how is the widow supposed to live? She can't maintain her house because she can't afford it anymore. All of a sudden, it's like, yes, now she may be saying, okay, I'm now $3,600 a month. That's what I get. But I lost $6,000. Life changing, life altering. You know, here's some dirty things I don't want to talk about. If you're poor and this person's wealthy, you know what? The poor people, you're going to die on an average of 9 years earlier than the wealthy person. And you know what? A lot of yous are going to die before age 65 or now age 67. So you won't collect Social Security. And what's the difference? It's kind of like if you ever watch the movie Logan's Run, it's pretty much like this. This one right here from the Center for Disease Control and the National Council on Aging and Leading Age from UMass Boston. Between 2018 and 2022, they looked at the mortality rate. Okay, the top 10% of wealth, their mortality rate is 10.7%. Not too bad. 81 to 90. 12.5%. So, being in the top 20%, it's looking like your mortality rate for that top 20 is about 11.5%. Okay. Just think the middle class, 41 to 60% in income, 17.6% mortality rate. Their mortality rate is 5% higher than the top 20. The 0 to 20%, the people on the bottom, have a mortality rate of 21%. The mortality rate from the bottom fifth compared to the top fifth is 10% higher. Okay, the next to bottom, 21 to 40%. The fourth quintile, 19.4%. So basically, if you're living in subsidized housing, you're collecting food stamps, you may be living on Medicaid, your quality of life totally sucks. You're here, especially the 21 to 40%, you may be working full-time at Walmart or McDonald's or different places like this. Okay? You can be working full-time, no health care, so you're on Medicaid, not making enough money because you got 2 kids, so you got food stamps. You may not even have a vehicle. You might have to buy on public transportation or walk to work. So we're going in there and we're complaining and we're saying how these people on the bottom are lazy and they're worthless. So this is for Americans 60 years and older. So here is the United States. Money talks and everyone else dies. Because if you have money and you great insurance, you get to go to the top-notch hospitals. Oh, I can afford it. I got good insurance. I got lung cancer. I go to Leahy down in Boston, one of the best for lung cancer. Oh, I got lung cancer and I can't afford it. Oh, maybe you go to one of the local rural hospitals and bingo, hopefully everything will come out, but chances are your life is not going to be extended like the one that goes to Leahy because, oh yeah, they caught it way before yours, okay? They didn't wait until you were like stage 3 or stage 4 to catch it. Over a 20-year period, more than 25% of the adults, one of 4, will receive a shock resulting in a 75% or higher in net wealth. Among adults aged 70 and over, more than 67% will experience at least one negative shock with financial consequences over a 9-year period. In 2022, about 50% of adults 50 and older did not have savings needed to respond to an emergency or financial shock. That's no golden years. Those are pretty rushed years, and that's living in kind of fear. Okay? My father-in-law passed. About 6 months later, my mother-in-law had a stroke. My mother-in-law is in the nursing home, and she has spent about $600,000, over $15,000 every month. And it's not very long before she'll be on Medicaid. The federal government wants to pay less on Medicaid. The state of New Hampshire wants to pay less on Medicaid. We, by New Hampshire Constitution, has to have them. We got to do it. And so that means the local taxpayers, property owners, have to pay more money to the county to cover the funding that the federal government and the state will no longer fund. In 2018, the average yearly cost of a private room in a nursing home was $105,485. In 2025, like I said, my mother-in-law will spend $180,000. And that's basically for a bed, someone to change her diaper, and someone to feed her. $180,000. Wealth and financial status. If you're in the bottom 20%, in 2020, the median, we'll do 2022. The median income, 50% above, 50% below, is $17,880. Net value of primary residence, 0. Household value of financial, 0. Household of net value of total wealth, 0. Median age, 67. Mortality rate, 21%, and on average, they die at 76. The next, which was called the working class. Their median is $30,000. The value of their primary residence is $31,000. It's dropped in value. The total value of fixed assets, non-housing, $1,600. Household net value, total wealth, $33,600. Average age 69, and they can expect to die an average of 79. The middle class. Their average household income, that could be 1 or 2 people or even 3, anybody over 16, is $46,000. Net value of their primary residence, $116,000. Net value of their household, $15,800. Their total net value, household net value, total weight is $148,900. Their average age is 71, and their mortality rate is 17.6, with the average age of dying of 81. Now, the upper middle class, they make up, their household is about 60,000. Their house is worth 224,000. That's after any mortgage and stuff. Their other assets, you know, 401k, you have some savings and all that, 127,000. Net value, the total value, $387,000. Their average age is 72, and they can live to about 82. Wow, $387,000 seems like a lot, but it only covers 2 years in a nursing home. And so, if, for example, that person at 73 had a stroke and had to go in a nursing home, they had to lose all their assets, that means by the time they're 75, they have nothing. And if they live for another 7 years, all that money comes out of taxes at the local, the county, the state, and the federal rate. Now, 81 to 90, you make 80,000. This is in 2022. The household is 80,000. Their house is worth 300,000. Now they have $624,000. Total value $1 million. We'll live to 83. The top 10%, they are valued at $2.5 million and can expect to live to 85%. So we've got to wake up. We're going to have a lot of people, a lot of homeless people with a really crappy quality of life. It doesn't need to happen. We have to find a better way to take care of our citizens, elderly citizens, olders. And like I said, you know, we're talking 50, 55. If you were born in 1970, you're 55. You're at the beginning of this group. So you better wake up. It's your future.